this was a great start, honestly. Okay, so I am going to hit record. And actually, my first question is if you could say your name and your title or role that you would like to be shared for this.
Sure, it's Steve Kaiser, General Partner at Better Ventures Capital.
Awesome. Thanks so much for chatting with me today. So I know that you spoke at TechCon SoCal in 2024 last year and will be returning as a speaker this year. What makes TechCon an event worth coming back to?
It was a fantastic event when I attended in 2024. What's interesting is that there's so many pockets of innovation around the country, but a lot of times people get fixated on the core places like Silicon Valley or New York or Boston or someplace like that. And there are these, I don't want to call them secondary markets of innovation, but for lack of a better phrase, that's what I'll use. They're doing extraordinary things. And here in San Diego, that's one of those markets where there's so much innovation going on. And we just need somebody to shine a light on that, to highlight all that innovation. In the 2 days that I was there, I took literally 11 pitches from startups, and I got to meet 3 other potential limited partners, and I found out about some industries here in San Diego that I had no idea even existed.
Wow.
So it was an extraordinary event.
That's incredible. Could you share a little bit more about who were those individuals that you met?
So there are a lot of military veterans here in San Diego, obviously with the Navy SEAL base headquarters in Coronado Island, multiple Marine Corps bases here, and an extraordinarily large naval base. There's a lot of veterans that are separating, that are trying to solve problems that they experienced when they were active duty. And the way that they're doing that is not going into government, not being a contractor, or not joining a large corporation anymore. They're much more likely to start their own companies. And for Veteran Ventures, that's exactly our investment market, is national security, dual-use technology startups that have a veteran on the leadership table somewhere. And there's lots of those here in the Bay Area, in the San Diego area. So we are looking at a lot of undersea drones, surface drones. There's some UAS companies here, a few AI ML companies here, and anything that has to do with maritime domain awareness. There's a lot of that here in San Diego.
Cool. And what were some of those new industries that you didn't know were here?
Had no idea how big the medical innovation community was here in San Diego. The Torrey Pines Road, I had no idea how much of a role they played in the COVID response. There's so many startups right across the street from Scripps Hospital. The talent that they are able to recruit from UC San Diego's medical school, it's that perfect ecosystem of talent from the university, very easy access to some very high quality hospitals, and a capital pool that's easily accessible. So I had no idea that was here.
I also didn't know that. I didn't know the extent to which they played in the COVID response.
Yeah, it's extraordinary. Yeah, a lot of the testing, a lot of the mRNA vaccines, but especially the testing was right there on Torrey Pines.
Wow. Okay. So that is obviously a lot of the value that you've gotten. So how would you describe the energy and the value of TechCon compared to other industry events that you may have attended?
It was at least as good. What I found particularly interesting, that it was small enough to be intimate, but large enough to be useful. A lot of times you'll go up to San Francisco and there's like 5,000 or 6,000 people there. It's overwhelming. It's like you can't do nearly as much as you want to do, and so you're just in this whirlwind of an activity. But the event in San Diego a couple years ago, I got to do almost everything that I needed to do while I was there. It was very full days. The networking opportunities and the sidebars were excellent, and you just didn't feel exhausted, and you didn't get everything done like you do sometimes when you go to larger venues.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. And you had mentioned that you first met an entrepreneur during the TechCon panel. that you later wanted to invest in. So can you share that story and how that came about?
Yeah, so the guy's name is Ryan Westerdahl. He's an ex-SpaceX guy, and he's the co-founder and CEO of a very innovative space company called Turion Space. And coincidentally, Ryan and I were on the same panel together, and he sat just to my left. And so I had my sport jacket on and everything, and Ryan shows up in blue jeans, a t-shirt, and his own sports jacket, but it was in Hawaiian print. And I had no idea that Ryan loved Hawaii as much as I do, so I've never seen him not in a Hawaiian shirt every time I've ever met him. And so I'm like, who is this guy? That's dressing up like this. And he had some extraordinarily interesting things to say during the panel about the role of space and the role of the startup ecosystem in developing space capabilities. And I'm like, I got to meet this guy. So we immediately had lunch after that, and we invested in his company 45 days after that chance meeting. And I can't get into the details, but very good things are happening there. We're going to be staying with that company for some time, but his company is doing extremely well and has been noticed by the right people to do some pretty big things in space.
That's exciting. Could you talk a little bit more about what in space they're doing?
Sure. So they design and manufacture these small agile satellites called droids. The first two droids went into something called polar orbit. So instead of orbiting the Earth around the equator in low Earth orbit, they actually orbited this way. And they perform something called non-Earth imaging. So that's a fancy way of saying I'm taking pictures of everything but the Earth. So for example, they take pictures of other satellites, of defunct rocket bodies, of the moon, of the stars, and do all sorts of things. And so obviously, the private sector loves that because they need to know what they need to stay out of the way of. The government loves it because we need to keep track of what other countries are doing in space. But he's expanded that mission set, and now he's going to be pursuing other capabilities to do things like chemical detection on the Earth, potentially do communication relays on orbit, and a few other things, mostly for national security.
Wow, yep. That's incredibly interesting.
He's built an amazing team, and he's just right up the road, not even an hour's drive north of here.
Just another great example of all the great possibilities that San Diego has with companies and people.
100%, yeah.
And so how, or I guess you mentioned that it was the Hawaiian blazer that first tipped you off to wanting to talk to him. But then after that conversation with him, what did he say, just for other founders to learn from, or what about his company made you be like, I want to invest in this?
Yeah, so that's a great question, and this is broadly applicable, at least in my opinion, to just about any startup that's looking for money. You have to have the trifecta. First of all, you have to have the vision for the problem and the solution. That you're creating the solution to the problem. You have to have a vision. If you're going to disrupt somebody, you're solving some big problem or whatever, and having the vision of both of those sides is critically important. Secondly, you have to have the technical chops to build it and lead a company. So building and leading a company is a very different and in some ways much more complicated and complex set of skills than having the technical chops for the product or the solution that you're developing. And then the third thing in that trifecta is understanding how to raise money and what role venture capital, angel investors, and all that sort of play in your raise. And he had all three of those things. And so that's a rare combination. Typically, you'll get a lot of companies that have a great idea, they have a product, but they don't have a business, and they're sort of blindly asking for money, but they don't know how to ask for it. Sometimes you'll get two of the three, but it's a rare day that you get somebody that's got a good understanding of all three of those concepts.
Wow, that's amazing. And what would you say are like the top three things in terms of that business technical aspect that you look for?
So it's one thing to be able to come up with a product It's another thing altogether to be able to say the value proposition of my product is sufficiently big that it can disrupt the market that I'm trying to go in. So you have to know what is disruptable in that market, and you've got to know exactly how your product disrupts it. A lot of times a marginally better product or a marginally cheaper product is not disruptive at all. So you've got to think beyond the boundaries on that. The second thing is building a prototype is easy. Building a handful of products is easy. Knowing how to scale is insanely hard. Building that supply chain, building the processes, having the quality control, being able to scale your workforce, train them properly, pay them well, all that sort of stuff. So knowing and understanding the challenge of scaling is very critically important. And then third, you have to be able to show that you can attract talent. I mean, the ecosystem of startups is very vibrant, and people today who have talent have got choices. And so you may not be able to pay as much as somebody else. What are you going to do to be able to attract and keep that core talent? And so those are the three things that we look for.
And do you see a lot of that talent opportunity here in San Diego?
I do. We have some really, really good universities. I mean, UC San Diego is one of the best colleges in the world. I mean, hands down, right? And then San Diego State, different reputation, but they're chunking out some really good people. We've got Point Loma, we've got University of San Diego, so we've got finance, we've got law, we've got engineering, we've got all those things. All that critical mixture is here in San Diego. Additionally, what I like about it here is that we've got such a large military ecosystem here that the number of veterans that are separating or retiring from the military is extraordinary. And we think about, let's just take somebody that joined the military for 4 years and they join the Navy or whatever. The military is going to put about a year's worth of training into them, send them to the community college of the Navy or whatever, so they're going to probably have an associate's degree by the time they get out. But the amount of responsibility that young person has been given by the ripe old age of 22 is something that most college graduates will never have. And so that hiring pool from veterans is just unbelievable. And so, it's just the perfect petri dish of talent here in San Diego.
I couldn't agree more about the military people coming with an extraordinary background that not the average person at that age has.
Right. Yep.
And when you attended TechCon, did you see that mixture of that talent with the founders? And can you talk a little bit about that?
I did. It was a really interesting group of people. So you did have some veteran founders there, again, that were doing the maritime domain awareness, the maritime robotics. And that's turned into one of our interesting verticals of veteran ventures that we're going to be investing in our second fund. But you also had people that weren't veterans but had worked with the military that were there sort of, presenting their ideas and things like that. There's also an ecosystem, and I want to give a shout out to Ellen Chang and the folks at BM&T, that their only purpose in life is to connect the government with startups. I'm a huge believer of public-private partnerships, where the government is the world's largest buyer of goods and services. U.S. Defense Department is the world's largest buyer of defense technology. It has also got the world's largest R&D budget, $248 million in 2025, I think, which is extraordinary, right? And so the government's challenge is that a lot of times they don't know what's available out there to them in the private sector. And so having these kinds of conferences brings those buyers and sellers together, which is very important. And then the role of the venture capital community, I think, is also extraordinarily important. So I'm getting a little bit off on a tangent here, which I'm off, which I do a lot. But the United States has the world's deepest private capital markets, hands down, just hands down. When you take away sovereign wealth funds, nobody comes close to matching the depth of our private capital markets. That is a national strategic advantage that we have over every other country in the world. And so if we can just somehow partner that depth of capital, it's an entirely altogether second defense budget, that our country could be bringing to bear against, the national security problems we have. replicate that for Department of Energy. We have ARPA-E. That's an entirely second Department of Energy R&D budget that we could bring to bear. Food tech, ag tech, all these sorts of things. If the government could signal very optimally to the venture capital markets, these are our national problems and we want you to invest in that, I mean, the unleashing of innovation would be extraordinary. And so the B2C markets, that's already happened because consumers signal very clearly what it is that they want by their purchasing decisions. It's harder to get that right signal from the U.S. government, regardless of which executive agency that you're looking for. But there is a lot of patriotic venture capital in this country that wants to invest for the good of the country. Not everybody is just there to make a buck at all purposes. There are a lot of VCs that want to do well by doing good by way of the country. And so by having what we had here, where we brought the pseudo-government entities, BM&T, the government, innovation, and VC together, that is a very, very potent combination.
And it was really cool to hear that TechCon was able to bring each of those individuals
100%.
Together.
Yeah.
And it sounds like from what you're saying of like that public-private partnership and all the government opportunities, San Diego is like the perfect place to bring those two opportunities together.
100%.
And yeah, I don't know if you could like talk a little bit more about what makes San Diego specifically that opportunity.
Well, you have quite a bit of a federal presence here. You've got lots of state presence here, which I was kind of surprised at that. But then you also have, again, the military presence here. And you're also very close to the border. It's got its own unique, challenges and things like that. And so a lot of the issues that the U.S. is facing right now, agriculture, lots of growing here in Southern California, climate change, pollution, ocean considerations, coastal erosion, national security, all those things kind of come together right here in this little corner of the country, right? And so if the best thing about an entrepreneur is for them to be curious about a problem that they're trying to solve. And the best way to scratch that curiosity is to be upfront and personal with the problem that you're trying to solve. And so there's problems aplenty here that you can be up close and personal and look at and observe and say, I can fix that. And then once you come up with that solution, go find the talent, go find the money, engage the government. And that's how big problems get solved.
And would you say that TechCon is a good place to, go find the money, solve the problems, network with people?
100%. One of the books I really enjoyed reading, although it's not the most technical book, is The Medici Effect. This explosion of innovation that happened in Europe was when all these artists, rich people, bankers, and buyers and creative thinkers all descended in various little towns in Italy. And the Medici family, which funded much of this, that's why it's called the Medici Effect, is because when you connect all these people, there's a whole line of literature about why creativity comes out more often in cities, because cities bring more people together and have those chances for interactions more often. Steve Jobs and Apple, the reason he created and built Apple the way he intended to is because it would force people to have serendipitous encounters where they wouldn't naturally interact with each other. The Rand Corporation in Santa Monica built their building in the 1950s specifically to cause people to have to walk past other people's offices that had nothing to do with what they were working on, and would force serendipitous and heterogeneous interactions between humans. All right, so now let's stop using fancy words and say SoCal TechCon. I met people there that I never would have met, but inspired me to think about different things. I met entrepreneurs there that I never would have met but for that conference, one of which we invested in. And so it's that serendipitous gathering of heterogeneous ideas, thinkers, and people. It's where great things are put together.
Wow, I couldn't have said that better myself. That's amazing. And now I have to check out that book.
It's a great book.
Okay, I love books, so any book recommendations I always welcome. So as CEO, or I don't know if you
Former CEO
of Phase 4, and now at Veteran Ventures, why do you think events like TechCon are valuable for not just founders, but also investors like yourself?
Well, investors are always looking for deal flow and the next big thing to invest in. So, there's been an explosion of venture capital funds, since 2020. So before 2020, about 100 new venture capital funds would be stood up a year. Since 2020, it's 10 times that. About 1,000 new venture capital funds are stood up every year. I think as of last year, there's like 44,000 venture capital funds in America. That's a lot. That's more than there's ever been, right? And so how do you differentiate yourself from someone else? Well, you find the better entrepreneurs, you find the better ideas, and get money into that company before your competition does. And so everybody is in San Francisco. Everybody's in that fishing hole up there trying to find that. And so when you come to a place like San Diego, there's a handful of us out here that are fishing in this fishing hole. There's some big ideas here, but there's less pressure. And so that gives us a competitive advantage. So for example, Turion Space, we got into that deal early because of a serendipitous encounter with Ryan Westerdahl. One company like that can make a venture capital firm. One big investment like that can make the difference. And so when you go to a place that's teeming with ideas, like Southern California is, but not everybody is fishing for those ideas and there's less competition, that's great. And so we want other people to come here. Of course, we don't want them to get the good deals before we do. But these secondary markets like San Diego are perfect for those emerging managers in venture capital to be able to find good deals without competitive pressure, from the Sand Hill Road folks, and get in on good companies with good founders.
Wow. I am just double convinced to go to this
100%.
event. I already was convinced and I went last year and had a great time. But
San Diego is the Austin that has yet to be discovered. The capital factory in Austin and the startup, eco vibe there in Austin is awesome. San Diego today is where Austin was probably 5 or 6 years ago.
So get in while you can.
Absolutely.
Before everybody else does.
100%. 100%.
Okay. And my last question for you is, what advice would you give to someone who is going to plan on attending TechCon for the first time, whether they're an entrepreneur, investor, just somebody interested in the space?
Do your homework is what I would say. Do your homework before, during, and after. Come a day early, leave a day late. And here's why. Find out who's going to be there, look at the agenda, and do your homework on who's going to be there and reach out to them early and schedule those meetings. I mean, people like me show up not just to hear the presentations, but to meet people, to meet entrepreneurs, to meet other investors and things like that. And start reaching out a couple months early because people's calendars fill up. And if you need to come 2 days early to meet these people, then show up 2 days early, because that's the value of these things, is the connections that you make. So do your homework early, study the agenda, buy the attendee list if you can do it, and start reaching out to those people 2 months before the conference even starts, and start scheduling those meetings. And then while you're there, execute. You are not there to rest. You are not there to sleep. You are there to execute, and that is attend the conference or the briefings that you want to attend to learn the things that you need to learn, but meet those people that you came there to meet, have those conversations, exchange contact information. And if you get 4 hours sleep a night, good for you, but don't get more than that, because you need to be making sure that you're getting up early and having those coffee meetings, staying up late to have those cocktail meetings and things like that. And then after that, if you haven't followed up with every single one of those people within 72 hours, you're not going to follow up with them. You're going to forget about that. And so do your homework, prepare a plan, get your sleep, get your rest early, eat your Wheaties, drink your Gatorade, and then hit it hard, and then do the follow-up work, because those relationships are going to be what makes or breaks you. Money moves at the speed of trust. Transactions happen at the speed of trust. Everything that you do, you should be investing in relationships, and it's conferences like this one that enables you to create those relationships that will make you or not.
Wow, thank you so much. That was really great advice.
Thank you.
Is there anything else that you would like to share about your experience, TechCon, advice, San Diego?
We're actively deploying capital, and so if you've got a startup company that is addressing the national security dual use ecosystem, reach out to me, and I'll see you next May at TechCon.
Awesome. Thank you so much. We'll be sure to share your details in the captions when we share this video so
Excellent.
people can reach out.
Thank you, Ellen.
Cool. Thank you.
Okay.
You did great. You did great.
Nervous as a cat.
Really?
Rocking